There's exactly one difference between you and a money launderer. He pays taxes on dirty money. You don't, and the system rewards him for it. Here's how the game is played, level by level. Level 1, the Smurf. You are a human ATM, and a very nervous one. The rule is simple. Any cash deposit over $10,000 triggers a federal report. So you deposit $9,500, then $8,700. Different bank, different name, always under the threshold. This is called structuring, and it's a federal crime, even if the money is completely clean. For your trouble, you get a 1 to 2% cut. On $2 million, that's 20 grand, but it's split across 200 bank visits, gas money, and the low-grade terror of a teller looking at you a little too long. The FBI calls you a money mule. The cartel calls you expendable. Both are correct. The government's Financial Crimes Unit processes 55,000 suspicious activity reports every single day. You aren't smarter than all of them. Time for Level 2. Level 2, the cash business. Congratulations, you now own a laundromat. Ironically. Let's say your business actually makes $8,000 a month, but you report $80,000. That extra $72,000 is dirty cash you've just declared as legitimate revenue. You pay taxes on it, the IRS gets its cut, and nobody asks questions. Pablo Escobar ran this exact model with hundreds of businesses. His accountants were paying taxes on cocaine profits, while the DEA was hunting him for those same profits. The two government agencies were, functionally, working against each other. The only vulnerability? Laziness. Don't report 80 grand from a car wash that's only open 4 days a week. Level 3. The shell company. You now exist in 14 countries at once. None of them are real. Company A in Delaware owns Company B in the Caymans. B invoices Company C in Luxembourg for consulting services. C pays D in Singapore, which wires the funds to a bank in Switzerland. 4 jurisdictions, 3 legal systems, and 0 paper trails leading back to you. Until just a few years ago, Delaware required 0 disclosure of who actually owned a company. You could create one online in 15 minutes, no ID required. The 9/11 hijackers used U.S. shell companies. The Panama Papers exposed over 200,000 of these entities, linking them to politicians and criminals across the globe. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed, just not for you. Level 4. The real estate play. You just bought a Manhattan penthouse. You've never even been to Manhattan. You buy a property in cash, through a shell company, in a market where nobody asks questions. You hold it for 18 months, then sell it with a modest profit. The money is now clean, documented as capital gains from a real estate deal. A U.S. Treasury investigation found that in some parts of Manhattan, over 30% of luxury purchases were made by shell companies with no identifiable human owner. Take one floor of the Time Warner Center in New York. 14 condos, 11 owned by shell companies. The residents included associates of a Russian oligarch, a Colombian businessman under DEA investigation, and a financier from the 1MDB scandal. One floor, 3 separate international criminal investigations. There's a Whole Foods on the ground floor. Finally, Level 5, the casino. The house always wins, especially when it's your house. You walk in with $500,000 in dirty cash, buy chips, gamble conservatively, lose maybe 10 or 5% over a few hours, then you cash out the rest. The casino hands you a check. It's legitimate, documented, and taxable. You've just paid a 10% laundering fee to turn drug money into documented gambling winnings. This is why Macau generates more casino revenue than Las Vegas, Monaco, and Singapore combined. The U.S. State Department has identified it as a primary laundering hub for organized crime and state actors. That includes North Korea, laundering money through casinos in Macau, which means Kim Jong-un is technically a casino customer.
Let's continue with Level 6, the bank. The motto here, you don't use banks anymore. You are the bank. Consider BCCI, the Bank of Credit and Commerce International. In the 1980s, it was the seventh largest private bank in the world. It operated in 78 countries with 1.4 million depositors, and its client list was diverse. It was used simultaneously by the CIA, Pakistani intelligence, Manuel Noriega, Saddam Hussein, and the Medellin cartel. This wasn't a case of just looking the other way. Undercover FBI agent Robert Mazer documented BCCI bankers actively soliciting drug money deposits, not failing to ask questions, but actively recruiting cartel clients. When BCCI finally collapsed in 1991, it left a $13 billion hole in its accounts. The fine levied was just $14 million. 13 billion laundered, a 0.1% penalty rate. The math, if you're keeping score, is extremely favorable. Which leads to an even bigger idea. Level 7, the sovereign wealth play. The motto, "You have purchased a government. Please hold for the next available dictator." At level 7, you stop hiding money inside legitimate systems. You become the legitimate system. The textbook example is the 1MDB scandal. This was a Malaysian sovereign wealth fund from which $4.5 billion was stolen. Goldman Sachs paid nearly $3 billion in penalties, and a sitting prime minister was convicted. Joe Low, the financier at the center of it all, didn't use simple shell companies. He laundered money through a government fund, using sovereign bonds, international banks, and the implicit credibility of an entire nation-state to move billions around the globe. That stolen money funded a Hollywood film, bought a $250 million superyacht, financed a $100 million art collection, and paid for a New York penthouse. And that Hollywood film? The Wolf of Wall Street, a movie about financial fraud partially funded by stolen Malaysian government money. The irony is almost too perfect. Nobody involved says they knew. This is level 7. The crime is so large, so institutional, that laundering becomes a philosophical question. Is it still laundering if the government itself is doing it? From there, we reach the end game, levels 8, 9, and 10. The motto, "You are no longer a criminal, you are an asset class." Level 8, cryptocurrency, Monero, Tornado Cash, chain hopping across 14 blockchains in 40 minutes. North Korea's state hacking unit, the Lazarus Group, stole $3 billion in crypto between 2017 and 2023. They laundered it through a maze of DeFi protocols, mixing services, and brokers. $3 billion, state-sponsored and largely unrecovered. Level 9, art. A painting has no serial number. Its value is subjective. Its history can be fabricated. You can walk into a gallery, pay $4 million in cash for a painting, walk out, sell it privately 6 months later, and declare $4 million in legitimate art sale proceeds. The EU and US finally mandated money laundering compliance for art dealers just a few years ago. Before that, for decades, the $65 billion global art market was completely unregulated. And then there's level 10. You are the infrastructure. You don't launder money anymore. You own the bank that processes the transactions, the law firm that creates the shell companies, the real estate agency that sells the properties, the casino that issues the checks, and the political party that writes the regulations. Your money isn't dirty. Your money is policy. The global watchdog for this stuff estimates that between $800 billion and $2 trillion is laundered globally every year. That's up to 5% of global GDP moving invisibly through systems that were designed, in part, to let it move. So the low-level guys get caught, the cash business owners get audited, the shell company operators get subpoenaed, but the men who own the banks, the funds, the governments, they get acquitted, or fined, or invited to speak at a conference about financial transparency. The dirtiest money in the world doesn't smell anything. It smells like a beach resort.